You have graphic for that? A huge shout out hello Facebook, to our newest co-producer, Jack Humbert. Welcome to the team. He's going to be joining.
We do atheism, Christianity, atheism, agnosticism, and we'll give it our best shot to answer those questions. So it's a call-in show, but what we're going to do, at least when we don't have any calls, is we're going to ask Nikki a little bit about her story to find out what is it that takes somebody from faith to doubt. And Caleb has shared his story, I've shared mine, and we'll revisit those things from time to time as we are on air. But today it's Nikki's turn. You don't even know anything about Nikki, but she's a delightful person. She's really a good co-host here, and I like being with her. So, Nikki, tell us something about how you first, or what kind of faith you had, and how you gained that faith.
Sure. Well, I was born here in Fort Wayne. My parents raised me in the church. I went through an 8-grade school, parochial school, and during that time, I did have faith. I really felt better anytime I looked into my faith when I was a teenager.
I'm back on
but
its
I still really participated in that. I was baptized. I had my communion, all that jazz.
The thing with this, we were doing chroma key.
Name the names in the church.
Sure,
It's hard to Zoom while you're live because the background doesn't move. Yeah, we can now. But I'm using virtual Zoom from 1 and 2.
Okay.
So, when it comes to my education there, I feel like I got a really good education. They did not shy away from science. They always prefaced it with what we believe it is, but they still taught the science exactly how it should be. So I didn't feel like I was missing anything.
Interesting. That's different than what others have said about parochial schools. I went to St. Jude's parochial school and St. Charles parochial school up till 4th grade, and I ended Glenwood Elementary Park with the Lane Center. But that was kind of different from my experience. I remember when I was in training for catechism classes at St. Charles, they were saying, now when you get out in the world, they're going to say this, but you hold still, you hold fast, you hold strong to what we're teaching because we're teaching you the truth. So that's unique.
Yeah, we didn't have that. It was a lot of very straightforward scientific thought and theories and everything like that. But again, they always had that asterisk, which that's fine. They can have an asterisk. About the time of about middle school age is when I started to questioning things. I remember my first questioning had to do with the 2 different creation stories in Genesis. I never got a solid answer on that.
When was that in this period?
7th grade, maybe 8th grade.
7th grade,
Yeah.
Early on then.
Yeah.
By my standards, that's early on.
Sure.
Okay.
That's true. But by the time I got to high school,
Just
it
using audio.
was one distinguishing moment that really stood out to me. We were in a youth meeting discussing various things of different denominations, and one of the things that was stated was that the lighting of candles and saying prayers was wrong, just flat out wrong. Now, I have family that grew up Catholic, so I raised my hand and I said,
No questions allowed. No questions allowed in some places, but
oh,
thank
no,
you.
they definitely
Thank you.
love questions. Yes, they had no problems with questions. But I said, because of my familial learned that they would be considered wrong or not worthy just because they did something slightly different than how we practiced it. So that is actually what I remember the most as my jumping off point of kind of splitting away from my church.
Those kind of traditions, and even what you're allowed to wear or not wear, and how long your hair is, and what you're supposed to do with that, whether you think of it, your sexual practices as well. These are things that mark us as different than them. And so the lighting of the candles, that's us. That's what we do. You don't do them. You're wrong for doing them, or you're right for doing them.
Right.
And the things that, if you stop and think about it, why would God care about whether you light candles or you're not?
And
In fact, even Jesus probably, if you want to stem back to him, he would probably say, well, these traditions, these rituals without meaning, are worthless to God.
But that's kind of how I felt about that. Was like, well, they're kind of like cousin religions, so why is it so drastic that they are on such the wrong path to heaven than what we're on? So
they actually fought against each other. If you
I know that.
I'm just ad-libbing here because it's fun.
Oh, trust me, Luther, we got that.
They fought each other, and they made certain cities in Germany into rubble. Because of their wars, and castles were taken and retaken for those sorts of things. Not necessarily lighting candles, but the authority to say you can light candles and you can't, or who can take the communion, who can be baptized, who can't, and that kind of stuff. So
and that's
it goes way back then.
Yeah, and that's one of the many things that I learned when I started studying, because at that point I started learning about different denominations, and I started to see, still under the umbrella of Christianity, what each one did, because I felt that where I wasn't right for me. So I decided to search out to see which one could possibly be correct for me. And along the way, I found numerous other religions. And so I started studying them.
Surprise! It's
and
like some eyes are being opened.
Well,
at 7th grade still? Or
no, I'm in high school at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, and and I remember being 19, and I was still searching at that point.
How intense was your search? I mean, like, was it like... how often did you think about it? Can you remember back? How often did you think about that?
There was a time span, especially through my 20s, where all I read were books on other religions. Because what it was more of a hobby for me at that point, because religions intrigue me. They still intrigue me. I love reading about the mythologies that go behind them and the stories, and then I love finding similarities between other mythologies. And I love how things overlap. And honestly, finding all the mythological overlaps, finding the way all these things kind of converge, is really what led me on my path then to atheism. And for a long time, I constituted myself as agnostic because I was still searching. I have found religions I never knew existed, ones that no longer exist.
Well, what are some of the most interesting ones that you studied?
Zoroastrianism is a very fun one. Docetics are kind of a really cool one. I've read the books on all of the non-canonical Gospels, the Gospel of Mary, Gospel of Judas. Gospel of Judas is really cool. So just books along that line. Hinduism is fun.
Books that didn't make it into the Bible.
Right,
it's
correct.
Like, because the winners of the wars decide whose books get into your canon of Scripture.
So the Nag Hammadi scriptures and all of them, and the Dead Sea Scrolls and whatnot.
Yes, you do know your literature, don't you?
Yes.
And so had a different sect of Christianity won the wars, then you would have a different Bible. It's just plain as day there.
Yeah. And then A History of God was a very good one for
Karen
me.
Armstrong.
Karen Armstrong. That led me to knowing all kinds of stuff. And I learned a lot more about the similarities and the histories between a lot of the religions, and especially how things became canonical, etc. And so that gave me a very good foundation. But
so what is it? Let's say you didn't know about other religions, and all you knew was the Lutheran Church. It would be a lot harder, wouldn't you think, to break away from the Lutheran Church? Because at that point it'd be either Lutheranism or, say, nothing. You know, I mean, that's what we believe, nothing, as atheists. But the more you know about religions, what is the takeaway? What happens when you become informed that there are so many religious people with so many different religions, and they're so devout, and they base their lives on that which you don't, and it seems like they get along just fine in their religion? What's the takeaway from learning about religions?
Well, my main thing was that I found that I had a lot more information, and I was more tolerant, and I was less afraid of things, because especially, I mean, in my 20s, that's post 9/11, and that was one of the biggest things, is that people were very scared, and all this other stuff about Muslims. And I had a friend who was a Muslim, and I didn't know a lot about her religion, so I kind of dove into that to find out more, because if nothing else, I could defend her to people if she wasn't present, and I felt that that really helped me out in just learning to be more tolerant of other people, because we all share this earth. There's no point in letting simple rules of dogma.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we pause for now. We have an incoming call from Bob. He wants. Are we supposed to read this, or are we going to hear from him? He wants to know if you believe people who pray actually believe that the prayer will be fruitful, or are we going to hear from him? All right, we're going to hear from him.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
Thanks for calling. You're welcome. A friend of mine asked a question about prayer. I don't remember all of the details as far as what the question was, but what I'd like to know is, in spite of the fact that people have been praying for a long time and don't seem to be getting much of an answer, why do people keep thinking that prayer works, and why do you think that that people keep on believing?
You want to do that? You want to start off?
I'll take your answer offline. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Why do people think that prayers are answered, and why do they keep on believing even though
Sometimes
some of them are not? You want to start with that?
Okay. Well, I think that people like to attribute everyday things to answered prayers. I heard one time at the grocery store, sorry, I don't mean to laugh, that's rude, somebody was thanking Yahweh for a parking space he got, and I'm sitting here thinking, really? Really? He's got that much time on his hands?
And that person is so much more important than world problems.
Yeah, your parking spot is. But yeah, I mean, when you have people who they attribute medical miracles, things like that, instead of being for modern day science, the doctors who've learned all these things, it's answered prayers. And then you're also taught, though, conversely, that if your prayer isn't answered, that's also an answer to a prayer. Sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. And if you're fed that line enough, then that's just how you grow up believing. Because that's what I was told a lot when there were things where I would say things about how my prayers weren't necessarily being answered the way I wanted the resolution to be. Well, that's because that's what you want, not what God wants. And I'm sitting here thinking,
okay,
well, that's rude.
Let's give you an example. Ask me something, not something mundane, something I could do if I wanted to here in front of the camera. Ask me to do something.
You
ask me to do something.
Oh, you want me
ask me to do something.
Are you Pharaoh now? Okay.
Just ask me anything.
Make that pen levitate to the end of the table.
Well, no, wait. Just say something like this. John, pick that pen up.
Okay, John, pick that pen up.
No.
Okay.
Now, how is that considered to be an answered prayer? You know,
yeah.
Or like if you would, maybe if you'd say,
yeah.
Would you please pick that pen up? Let's say, you being the prayer, or me being Jesus or God or Mary or Joseph or whoever
John,
else.
will you please pick that pen up?
No.
Okay.
Have I answered your prayer? Have I answered your request? No. It's not an answer to say no. It's a rejected. It's a prayer that's been rejected. So to say yes, no, or maybe, that is something. Okay. Then that just the answer itself is not answering a prayer. Answering an answered prayer is a request that has been granted, whereas an unanswered prayer is a request that has been rejected. It's as simple as that. So, given the number of times that Christians or believers of all stripes pray, ask petitionary prayers, then I don't even know what the ratio would be. 0.001 out of 1,000 that theirs are answered, and a lot of them are prayers that are answered in the asking. Like they don't ask things like, "Please move this mountain."
Yeah.
Or if the plane's going down, please save us. It's too late then. They're asking for strength. Can I have strength? Oh, in very asking for strength, you get strength because you're actually, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. But I'll tell you what.
Go ahead.
If you were in that plane going down, and that plane miraculously, the engines kick back on, then guess what?
God
answered your prayer.
And how many times have you seen someone that stands up after everybody else is dead, but he's alive after a plane accident? And says, God saved me, must have a plan for my life. What would you say? What would you say about that?
Well, how much time do we have? Well, because I had a situation like that one time. I was out with some friends, and I got into a religious discussion with a person that I'd never met before, but he was really cool. And he said that one of the reasons why he still has his faith is because of the fact that his brother had some kind of inoperable brain tumor, and he was only given 6 months to live, but his brother was able to live 5 years on. And I'm like, that is fantastic. And he said, so God granted that to me. My counter argument for that was, why is your family so special? Why did you get that time when, say, the girl I went to elementary school with, who had also an inoperable brain tumor, died within those 6 months? Was her faith not right? Were her parents not praying right? So he really, I mean, it evolved from there, but that's one of my things. I'm like, I'm glad you think that your God chose you to be the special one to survive that plane crash, but why are you special?
Well, here's a Bible contradiction for you. In James, it says God does not show partiality. I think it's James chapter 2. God does not show partiality. Well, then why is he showing partiality to some people and not others? They say, well, because God loves us more, which is the bottom line. The answered prayers go to narcissistic, selfish people who think that they are the center of the universe. And the indicativeness of that is the fact that the temple of Jerusalem, the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, was considered to be the house of God. That's where God lived, inside the sanctuary there. Because the center of the earth was where God was, and since we live in Jerusalem, we live in the center of the earth too, with God. It's really an egocentric type of view that says, if God answered my little tiny prayer or any kind of prayer, not somebody else's, then it's because God loves me. That's the bottom line, because God loves me best. Well, you know what? I just don't. That means God is not a lover of all people at that point. And if there is a God, he should love everybody. That's it. It says he loves everybody, but he obviously doesn't.
Because my response to him also, because he then posited to me, then why did he get those extra 5 years? And my response to him was, why does penicillin work for most people but kill other people? Why can some people take ibuprofen but not others? Some people respond better to cancer treatment than others, and that's just basically how I figure. I was like, obviously without looking at his medical chart, I have no idea. But for the most part, that's kind of why I think is maybe why he was able to, like, why did my aunt survive breast cancer, but my friend's mom didn't? I don't really think it has anything to do with faith.
It's all random. It looks all random.
It's body chemistry.
Sometimes that kind of thing happens. Now, to the second part of that question, why do believers continue to believe even though when prayers are not answered? I mean, they do acknowledge, okay, so I was praying for someone to live and they died eventually in the hospital. After all, they were brain dead anyway, and it was only a matter of time. So my prayers couldn't have had a chance in hell to be answered anyway. But so, okay, God doesn't always answer prayer there or in other places as well. I've been praying for the salvation of John Loftus since, I don't know, I first met him or know him, that's true. And so why isn't that prayer answered? What kind of rationales do they give for unanswered prayer like that?
Well, it's still having to do with God's answer to your request is no. Because no is an answer to request. Mom, can I have dessert? No, that's an answer to my request. But then it also comes back to faith. You have to have the faith.
It's rejection of the. It's a
rejection of the request, but your faith will continue to keep you in that religion and in that belief that prayers do get answered. And even if that person doesn't make it through, good news. You'll get to see that person in heaven, and it's okay if they die now. You get to see them later.
God knows best. God knows best. No matter what happens, if it's an answer that you wanted that is rejected. God knows what's best,
because that's just part of his plan.
And you know what? That goes with any unanswered prayer request from Muslim or Hindu or Orthodox Jew or snake handler. They all use the same justifications because they all suffer the same consequences. That is prayer that is not answered. Because there isn't a prayer answering God. Never was, never will be. It's just by faith they think there is. They want to believe it so bad that they make it. They wishfully bring it into existence, and when it's not there, they use what's called selective observation, where they only observe the answers and never the denials. I mean, I've been in churches where people raise their hand and say, "God answered a prayer request of mine. Well, what was it? And they say what it is. They say, oh, praise Jesus. But I've never heard one person ever stand up in church and say, hey, I've had a few denials this week. God rejected this prayer of mine. God rejected this prayer of mine. So praise Jesus for the rejections because his ways are mysterious. But they might as well do that. But then if they did that, everybody would raise their hand and say that.
Well, looks like we have another call coming in. We have Karen from New Haven. Karen, can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, Nikki.
Hi, Karen. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be on the show. On the theme of prayer, I've always wondered why people feel that that's enough. I would rather see them get out there and actually do something and make a difference instead of asking for divine intervention.
Oh, agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, if everybody who said that they're praying for me would actually do a good deed in my name, more would get done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what is it?
Makes them feel like they're doing something when they're not.
The Bible even says somewhere, you're probably better at this than I am, that prayer without works is
dead.
Yeah.
Faith without works is dead.
Faith without works. I think that applies for prayer too. I mean, you can pray for certain things, but you actually have to do it. And of course, on this show, we believe you have to do it without the prayer because you can do it. But
prayer works marginally as well as chance.
Yeah.
I mean, show me otherwise. I mean, I'd be interested in a clinical study that shows that comes through.
Do you think that people need to take responsibility for their actions? That praying absolves them from having to actually do anything?
Bingo! You win the prize. I think that's a really good answer. I think that prayer absolves us from doing anything and from any blame if something doesn't happen. A good answer. I like that.
Social media tells us that.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably a multifaceted number of reasons why people would rationalize things away like that. I like that one. That's good.
Yep.
You want to go back to your story?
That's fine. Karen, did you have any other questions?
No, that was good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed the show, so thank you.
All right.
Karen.
Thank you. Okay. Well, the rest of my story, where were we? I was in my
religions
20s.
and what religions
Yeah.
did to your faith.
Yeah.
Because you knew there are other people who believed differently and as fervently as you did, and yet they claimed that their God answered their prayers just as fervently as you would have.
Yeah, I might actually lean on the side of I felt maybe that my prayers weren't answered as much.
Okay. Okay.
Despite my great education in that school, there was a lot of bullying that went on, and I kind of caught the brunt end of it a lot, and so my prayers went, in my opinion, unheeded, which I'm not saying that's why I stopped at faith, but I'm not saying that didn't help propel me forward. But I honestly think the big nuts and bolts of it was that my studies into other religions. Like I also have books on Hawaiian gods, Norse gods, the Druids.
Do you remember? Can you remember any of those stories, or have you
Well,
forgotten some of them?
Pele is the one that always stands out nicely to me. She's the goddess of volcanoes, and when a volcano is erupting, Pele is very upset, and the only way to calm her down is to sacrifice young virgin boys to her by throwing them.
Usually I know. Girls.
By throwing them into the volcano to then cause it to stop erupting.
And people wonder why I'm against religion. I mean, really, with that story and that story alone, don't you get it? Religion causes harm. In that case, it's some serious harm.
Very serious harm. Oh, look, we have an emailed question.
Okay.
It's from Kenneth Jones from Kennetville.
Hi, Kenneth.
Hi, Kenneth. How do you folks feel about the use of religious language in atheist and secular communities? Do you feel that it could be considered a type of a cultural appropriation? For example, I used to get punished for saying things like, holy cow, not because we feared insulting the great cow in the sky, but because I was raised to believe it was inappropriate for us to use such language as non-Hindus.
Now, I will
I get it.
Talk about this very night. There's certain language I don't want to use. And I don't want to use the word believe or belief. I think that if I come to a conclusion, I don't believe it. If I've come to a conclusion that's based on the probabilities, the strength of the evidence, then belief adds nothing to that conclusion. And so, I avoid belief. Now, I know that atheists will disagree with me on that, but I think I'm right. And I'm going to avoid words like the mark of Cain, or the test of Job. I'm going to use,
Do you say bless you when people sneeze?
No, I
don't?
I don't say bless you. Because that's saying that you lost the spirit, and I'm going to put that spirit back in you.
Yes.
I usually when someone says bless you after a sneeze, I say, who authorized you to bless? I really do. I say it with a smile, but I'm very serious.
Sure.
Who authorized you to bless me? And so we'll have a little discussion about the authority for that. And God always speaks through human beings, and they never whisper in my ear. So, in my opinion, I try to avoid religious language as much as possible. I don't even like to use hell. Although sometimes I do. And when I catch myself, every time I catch myself, I revise and say, don't do that again, because it's using the language that has developed from the culture that we live in, which is Christian. In Muslim countries, it would be different. So I agree that we should eviscerate ourselves from all Christian language, just as we try to do with sexist language. Sexist language, where you're always talking about he, and you treat women inferior with your language. Give me some examples. You probably could do real quick here.
Referring to
women
girls
and girls. Okay,
girls.
Yeah. I just as we want to try to get rid of sexist language, I want to get rid of religious language, and I do it by example. I don't necessarily always argue for it like I am now, though. So thanks for bringing that up.
Sure. Yes. Thank you very much for your question there, Kenneth.
Do you want to comment on that at all?
No, actually, you said a lot of the things that I pretty much would have said too.
Back to your story.
So, okay, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. In my 20s still.
Everyone's gonna know what your age is.
It's
by the
10
time
years.
we're done
It's all right. It's all right. But I think in my 20s is where I really kind of dove very much so headfirst into studying all the other religions. I picked out books as much as I could, but I picked up all kinds of books. They were pro-religion. They were from an academic standpoint, and then there were an anti-religion, obviously, like Hitchens, Dawkins, all that jazz. But Bart Ehrman's probably the one that really kind of helped me out the most, because he does a lot from, he's a scholar, he's a scholar, and
one of my
he's
heroes.
So good at it. And at that point, I was still agnostic, and so Dawkins and I don't agree with that term, but that's all right. He's allowed his opinion, no matter how wrong it is.
He disagrees with Dawkins, everybody. I love her.
Only because he doesn't believe in the term agnostic, but that's okay. He had some choice phrases for us in the God Delusion that I was like, oh, okay, dude, I see how you are.
See, we allow for reason to debate, but it's reason. It's not basically off with your heads or anything like that.
And yeah, so I kind of stuck with that for quite some time while I was still in my searching phase. And then, honestly, Ricky Gervais is the one who kind of helped me come to terms with the word atheist, because I think like a lot of people in today's society, especially here in America, they hear the term atheist and it has such a negative connotation with it that people don't want to use it, and people are afraid to use it. But in Britain, it's very different because they're less religious, and so there are more out there, Stephen Fry, etc., that are okay with just saying, I'm an atheist. And so listening to him really kind of helped me cross over that final hurdle to just saying flat out, yes, I am an atheist.
What did he say that led you to be comfortable coming out? Just that he's an atheist? He says he's an atheist?
I think just him openly saying it without inhibition. And I don't think there was anything specific that he ever said. It was just constantly watching him talk about it. And
so you may not be as influential or well-known as Ricky, but would you look into the camera? There might be someone out there or two who wants to hear you say the very same thing.
Sure.
What are you?
I am an atheist.
That's right.
And
that means?
What's that? Means I don't have faith in any of the thousands of gods that are out there. There is no heaven, there is no hell, and I'm going to be okay. I make my impact here on this planet. I do everything I can for the here and now, because there is no afterlife. There is no reward. So you be a good person now, and it's okay to not have a God.
Well, don't you have a hope for afterlife? Tell them. I mean, what are you going to do about the afterlife? Don't you have hopes of seeing Mom and Aunt Ann and Grandma?
No, that's why I call my mother regularly. I call my father regularly. I go out to dinner with them as much as I can. I keep in touch with distant family on social media. It's not something that I'm going to do later. I want to do it now, because now is all I have. I mean, what happens when I die? I decompose.
Just like animals.
That's
when
it.
people ask me where you go when you die, I always ask them in turn, well, where do your cat and your dog, if you have some, where do mice and parasites go? Where do horses and bulls and crocodiles and scorpions, where do they all go? Well, the way you answer that is where I'm going to go. And they go in the dust, that's where I'm going to go. Yep. And they apparently are able to live out their evolved lives, and they do a fine job.
They're okay. They're okay.
So you're an atheist.
I'm an atheist.
And you're not a bad person?
I don't like to think of myself as one, no. I do everything I can to not be one.
No.
So...
I mean, how could you be a bad person when you have a family that you were born with and friends? I mean, being a bad person, what would it mean if you were truly a bad person? People wouldn't like you. You'd be all by yourself. You'd eventually be put into jail. That doesn't sound like much of a life.
It doesn't.
No.
It doesn't. And, I mean, you want to get statistical about it. Was it 90% of all people in the prison system right now identify with a religious organization? Or I think it's over 90, actually. I'd have to Google the exact number. But, yeah, there's a overwhelming majority of people in the system right now have a religious affiliation.
Now, once again, tell them that this is a call-in show. Give them the number. Where's that number?
Where's the number? The number, once again, for anyone who would... Nope, I'm over here now.
We're getting better technically, but not today. Not today.
Jeez, they switched it on me again. Is 260-422-3902, or you can email us at weareatheisttv@gmail.com. So, yeah, feel free to give us a call. Send us an email. It's a lot of fun hearing from everybody. It's a lot of fun discussing things. We appreciate everyone who's already called in and emailed. It's definitely keeping the show running very nicely and very smoothly. Well,
is there more you want to say? I mean, you became an atheist. Now, apparently, you are, I mean, I don't know if you would describe yourself as an activist, but you certainly are not afraid of coming out like this.
I'm not afraid of saying it. I mean, I don't flaunt it. I don't feel the need to flaunt. I do have a couple of shirts that have some religious and borderline offensive humor
you
to
do that
it.
Probably to be provocative.
I do.
I mean, not to anger, probably, but just to be provocative and to just say we're not afraid.
The gentleman who I had the conversation about why his brother lived is because I was wearing one of my provocative T-shirts, and he actually stopped and had to come and talk to me about my T-shirt. And
oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, it
opens up a conversation. It may kind of start out a little bit like and angry.
He was well. It was at a bar too, so he was drinking. But it was a shirt. Remember about 10 years ago where everyone was wearing shirts that I heart whatever.
I think so. Yeah.
I heart stuff. So this shirt.
I wasn't part of that fad. That's why I don't.
Sure, no. But this shirt cracked me up when I saw it because it says I heart polygamy. And it just cracked me up. So I bought the shirt, and I still have it, and I wear it, and I think it's funny. So, but he saw it, and it then enticed him to come over and talk to me, and we had a really good conversation for almost 2 hours about just faith, and it was really cool.
Okay, it looks like we have a phone call. Is it to?
Not sure
hello?
What's going on there.
Those guys
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Sorry. Thank you for taking my call, guys. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Well, my question is pretty straightforward. I was wondering if you guys don't believe in God, and I'm assuming that would mean that you guys aren't very spiritual. So, what do you use to fill that void? I mean, surely you need something there. I mean, what do you replace it with?
That is a great question. That is a great question. Thank you. I myself, actually, music is what drives me. Music drives everything that I do from the moment that I wake up till when I'm going to sleep. I love to dance. I dance. I love musicals, and music is what moves me. Like if I hear this gorgeous piece and it's soaring, or it's very sad and it's very moving, then I will just... Yeah, I can lose myself in a fantastic piece of music, and that is where if I have a soul, that's what moves me. I can't play an instrument, but I like to sing in the car, in the shower, and sometimes at karaoke, but that's pretty much what keeps me driving to the next day, is finding new music. In fact, yeah, like if you go on my Facebook page, I do new music Mondays and like cover tune Tuesdays, which I will be doing when I get home tonight. I already know what I'm going to put on there. So
I'm here wrestling with what you mean by void. I'm trying to. You didn't give me enough clues. I guess it's assumed I should know.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, well, what I mean is, like, I can't imagine not having my companion with me everywhere for comfort, for joy, whatever the case may be. And if that's not there, that's what I'm wondering. Do you even feel them? Maybe I should ask you this way. Do you even feel like there's a voice?
Well, I had an invisible imaginary friend too, and it was quite a loss. That's what I believe now, and so that's what I'm going to call it, because that's calling it the truth. You know, I mean, like children, they play fantasy, and they have sometimes the dolls are real to them, and they talk to them, and you know, take that doll away, they would be really upset, you know, and maybe cry themselves to sleep. You know, that's why you don't want to do that to kids. But the imaginary friend was really real to me, and I was talking to him and walking with him, you know, and it took a lot to wrench me and him, and my imaginary friend, apart, because my brain was tied to him. I was from birth, and I always thought I could talk to him. He was with me and helping me, but I realized that it was fantasy. I realized that it was an imaginary thing. It was a gradual period. And then before you knew it, I was without him. You know, all of a sudden, I'm all by myself here. And you're saying, how do you fill that void, the void of an imaginary friend? Find real friends. You know, find flesh and blood friends. Do things with people. Be productive. Do something with the life you have. It's an imagined hope. You know, that there's a heaven, just like there's an imagined friend. So how do you fill that void? You fill it with doing good things. You fill it with fun and laughter and music. You do it with a host of things, but what you don't do is you try to make up another imaginary friend. I'm sorry if that's harsh words, but that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, all right.
Thanks for calling.
I don't really do much
I'll have to think about that. And then call back after you have and you want to have further discussion.
All right. Have a good one, fellas.
Thank you.
Where are we?
No, that's valid. That was valid. But yeah.
Where are we?
Where are we? I don't know.
You're still 20.
I was in my 20s. This was a decades long trek with me. I mean, I went to various churches to try to find like non-denominational. I had a boyfriend one time that was Catholic. I went to church with him one time to try to see what was going on. They made me leave before communion because I was not Catholic, which I thought was way harsh, but that's neither here nor there. The non-denominational, that was just too long. Beautiful music, but yeah, a little too long on that. And then I studied for like 3 months with the Mormons just to find out what they were about. I've read all 3 of their canonical books.
Folks, this is how you investigate religion. I'm looking right at you. This is how you investigate religion. Look, when you want to go to buy a car, do you just walk into the used car salesman in his office and say, okay, I want a car, that one's fine? No, you research into it. You go from different car dealers, you research on different cars. This is how you research religion. You don't just adopt the one you were raised to believe. If you are someone who has adopted a religion you were raised to believe, you did it wrong. Now, I'm not saying that your faith is wrong. I'm just saying you did it wrong.
Yeah.
And if you did it wrong, you need to do this. Mm-hmm. You just need to do this.
Because I don't know if maybe I had found one that I thought was a really good fit for me. Like, I really like Buddhism. I a lot of mad respect for Buddhists and what they do, what they believe in, everything like that, because it's just very, very peace-loving, and it appeals to my hippie nature, so yeah. I do really enjoy
Buddhism
it.
can be embraced without the belief in a God.
Yes, because, technically they don't have a God.
Right.
So, yeah, but, because I studied Wiccan because my sister's Wiccan, and I just wanted to understand more of her.
Wow, you
and
know
what
so much about so much.
And what she went, what
you
she
know
goes
a thing
through.
or two because you've seen a thing or two.
I have, and for a long time I thought my brother was Buddhist because he very much so was following the life of the Dalai Lama, and I totally respect him for that. And so, I mean, I just tried to get what I thought was the right fit for me. And if I had found one of those, who knows? I would have. And that's why I tried with my, very much so in my opinion, ironic godson. I'm a godmother. And
that's the language I refuse to use, just so you know. And I'll just mention that because...
No, it's cool because when I was asked, I was like, wait, seriously, me? But I wanted to take him and show him a good foundation of all the different religions. And he has chosen religion now. He's 17. He's chosen a religion.
So you're not against religion?
No, I'm not anti-theist at all. I am not. I understand that people need that in their lives. Well, they feel that they need that in their lives. Just because I don't need that, I won't fault anyone. Like my mother, I will never disparage her religion. She and I can have discussions about it. She might say things that I find easily quashed, but it's her religion, it's her life.
But you're not afraid of telling her that you're an atheist and why you are?
Oh, no, she knows I'm an atheist. Yeah, my whole family does, so it's not... In fact, she told my aunt, because my aunt asked me to pray for her one time. My mom goes, oh, no, she's an atheist. I was like, okay, there we go. So that was fun. And...
We have an incoming call?
But I just feel that if I had found one that I felt was the right fit for me, I would have taken it, and I would have ran with it. But I didn't. So what I'm left with then is nothing.
I want to come back to that last
Sure.
phrase, whether the religion is right for you. I want to remind me that if I forget.
I will.
Heather from Fort Wayne.
Hi. Hi, John. Hi, Nikki.
Hello.
Hi. So I've been listening to your show tonight, and I was actually really interested. First of all, Nikki, the thing that you said about how you were atheist and how, you as a person, you're enough, and you're going to try and do good out in the world and just be a good person. And then you were talking about how prisoners, they have like a really high rate of, converting to Christianity in prison. And I was wondering if it might be beneficial if atheists were to go in, like the way the Christians go into prison, and try to, I can't really say preach, but go in and talk to them about how they don't need a religion to fall back on, because it seems like, they, are like, oh yeah, I'm saved, and I'm going to go back out, and the world is going to be a completely different place, and then, no, they're still back in the same situation they were, and, then they wind back in prison because they just aren't walking the same life that they were. And so I didn't know if maybe you guys thought that it might be beneficial for atheists to go in there and go, you can make the changes yourself. God isn't going to make these changes for you.
Go for that.
Well, there are fewer atheists in prison and jail than there are believers. So most of them are believers. There would be right grounds for atheist evangelism. I don't know that many do that. I'm not sure that many jails or prisons would allow that. I think if the people, townsfolk, heard that atheists are going in to propagate, then they would say, well, they're the problems, I mean, I don't know how that would work, the logistics of that, but I really do think that atheism is a better way of life. You make real decisions on your own that you can be responsible for and not punt to God told me.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not somebody wants to be evangelistic with what they don't believe, I don't know. That would have to be up to a person's individual demeanor and personality. I don't think there are that many people who would have that kind of demeanor, though. That's all. Because atheism is a lack of belief, in many ways, and and they would run into all kinds of animosity in the prisons if they went to try to. I mean, from the prisoners themselves, that it would be a difficult road to hoe. Although I wouldn't be opposed to it if somebody wanted to do that.
Yeah, I think it would be very difficult to try to get through, even just politically speaking, having that cleared through the prison systems or the jail systems.
But I wouldn't have any problems with it if somebody wanted to do it.
If that was something that could be feasible, I think that's something that would definitely
make news. If you're an atheist, and you're out there, and you want to be an activist, you want to make news. Some atheists are going in front of town councils and congresses around the states and praying. Saying, well, if you have the right to pray, so do atheists, and so do Satanists. So they'll say, well, let us say the invocation, and that's activism. It makes news, and it calls into question the separation of church and state and why they are allowed and others aren't. If you're an activist, then and you think that atheism will help people, which I do, and you want to do this, then that would do the requisite work.
That'd be very cool. That'd be very cool. Yes, I agree.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Another one.
Yep, we got an email question here from Andrew. It says, so where do atheists meet for the atheist version of fellowship and community service events to help the needy? Thank you for your question, Andrew. At least here in Fort Wayne, we have Free Thought Fort Wayne. We have a weekly meeting on Sundays at Old Crown Coffee from 11 to 1. We also have various activities throughout the month, seeing movies or having panel discussions. We have a radio show, book reading club. That's also one thing. As for community events, at least with Free Thought Fort Wayne, as I said at the top there, we do have a volunteer that we're doing this month with Community Harvest Food Bank. That's coming up this Saturday. I personally do whatever. It doesn't have to be sanctioned through the group. I actually have now 5 years running, I believe, been awarded the Presidential Volunteer Service Award, either in the silver or bronze level. Not to toot my own horn there, but and I've done that through various things. I've done that through charity walks. I've done that through helping out with the food bank. I've done that through donating pop tabs and those. If you've seen the things about the buddy benches, where they melt down the plastic and they make a bench, and then you sit them, and school kids are able to use them to help stave off loneliness and bullying. I donate platelets and blood. It's basically anything else anybody else does. There's so many opportunities within our community and within our city, and especially and even in the surrounding counties, for you to just go and be an active community member and just to do things to help the needy. We've put together bags. I've helped out with the rescue mission, because I'll go and volunteer with religious organizations. I don't have to limit myself that way. I've done things for the Salvation Army. I've worked with Big Brothers Big Sisters. I've worked with all kinds of places. So I haven't been a big sister. I don't do kids, but I'll help fundraise.
There are other people. They have different talents. They do different things. Victoria Gibson is one. She can perform weddings, and she married my wife and I.
Very nice.
Down in Texas,
Very nice.
And she's helpful in all those kinds of things
Definitely.
as well. So Old Crown on
Coffee.
Sundays
On North Anthony.
North Anthony, from 11 to 2.
Yep.
Now I want to get back to what you said. You were looking for the religion that was right for you.
Yes.
Now, what do you mean? So if there's a believer out there that's listening to you, they're going to ask the question, right for you. What do you mean?
Yeah.
There's a religion right for you, and there's a religion right for someone else, and what do you mean by that?
That's why there's so many religions. It's because the religion is not a one-size-fits-all situation. And so, well, what I mean by that is that when I decided to look out beyond my individual church, and I went to different denominations, and then I went to different branches, and I went to different religions. I was trying to see which one felt like it meshed with me in my personal life, with my personal beliefs, and what I felt like I needed from the world, what I felt like I needed from life, and all of this stuff. And so, but there were things that just weren't quite, nothing gelled with me. Nothing jumped out and said, me. This religion is going to be the right one for me.
So you didn't know it, but you were looking for a non-religion.
I didn't know that's what I was going to end up with. No.
But you were looking for something.
I was looking for something to believe in. Poison reference. I told you I love music.
Yep.
So yeah, I was looking for something, and what I ended up with was nothing, I guess. But it's atheism.
Nothing was worthy of belief.
Nothing was worth belief.
Nothing was.
I found humanism. I found atheism. I found agnostics. I found nuns. Whatever you want to go by, that's what I found. And
the
that's
NONES
yes,
category.
Yes.
That's
and
no
is,
religious affiliation whatsoever.
Okay.
So we have another.
Is this a call or is it just a question?
It looks like an email from Indianapolis. Do you fear my faith, which is Christianity,
or hate it?
Or do you hate my Christianity? I can't imagine why folks would want to speak out against something which has only brought people joy.
Okay.
And it's what's her name?
Shelley. Shelley Thompson from Indianapolis. Thank you very much for your question.
For
I personally am not anti-theist. I don't have a problem with other people's religions. I don't fear Christianity. The vast majority of people I know are Christians. It doesn't bother me. I don't hate it. I know that some people do very well in a religion. I just wasn't one of those people. I also do know people that aren't very good with their religion. And that we'll probably have to wait for another show to discuss. But yeah, that's at least from my point of view.
Yeah, I don't. I do fear certain aspects of religious faith. I will say that. I don't like what it can do. Like there are people who don't take their children to the hospital because they believe God will heal them, and their children die. Now, I fear for the kids' sake there. There are wives that are beaten down by their husbands because I'm the man of the house, and you will do as I say. Well, I fear for those women.
Yeah.
There are lots of things I fear about religion. Christianity, the Islam faith, of course, seems to be obvious. Cutting off your heads, or throwing homosexuals off a building. Yeah, I fear for those people. So religious faith does do things that I fear. I fear what you could do. I fear what Trump has done by Supreme Court nominees that can last decades. That's a topic politically. We can get into that.
Easy there, champ. Easy there, champ.
But I fear for things that religion does. So.
Yeah. I mean, every religion has had a very rocky past. It's all had its ups and downs.
Some less than others.
Definitely. Yeah, some less than others.
It's arguably the case that Christianity has caused more harm than any other religion. Partly because it's been the religion of the UK and America, two very, very powerful nations, and how they enslaved and captured indigenous peoples and forced them to believe or be killed, and brought with them diseases, and incarcerated them by sending them off to Australia and spreading the religion that they had of hate, slavery. So it's arguably Christianity has actually caused more harm. Now, if you want to know one book that would catalog those harms, then there's a book called Christianity Is Not Great, and I edited it. It's big. It's massive, and it tells you what Christianity has done and could do again and is doing.
And there's another one called When Religion Turns Evil. I read that one. That was another good one, too.
Yes.
So, well.
Well, what else did she say? I can't imagine why folks would want to speak out against something which is... now, there's the placebo effect, and that is the doctor will prescribe a placebo, a sugar pill, and it'll make the person feel better because they will it. It's psychosomatic. Now, there are some people who use Christianity as a placebo, and they feel better about themselves because it's them.
But it can do good. I'm not saying it can't.
Oh, I'm not saying it can't do good. I'm just saying because I fear.
But I do disagree with the has only brought people joy phrasing. But I mean, that might not be exactly what you meant. But yeah, I mean. But we thank you for your question. Definitely. That was a very good question to ask. So, all right.
You want to close it out?
I think we're good now.
We're going to wind it up?
I think so. Well, we just definitely want to say thank you for joining us today on We Are Atheists. Thanks to our awesome crew.
And the audience.
We're fantastic. I've had a great time.
Especially that girl right there.
It's his wife. But I've had a wonderful time. Thank you for being my co-host.
I said girl, didn't I?
You did. It's all right. I'm sure she'll forgive you.
Thanks for watching.
So, but yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Bring the mics down.